So the moment you came in, I was in meetings, my phone's blown up. Did you see what President Obama just tweeted? I'm like, what did he just tweet? So just so you know, I haven't even looked into this. So we're both going green into this. And I'm curious to know what you're going to say about this. So President Obama tweeted this 2 hours and 14 minutes before you and I started the podcast. Today's Supreme Court decision effectively guts a key pillar of the Voting Rights Act, freeing state legislatures to gerrymander legislative districts to systematically dilute and weaken the voting power of racial minorities so long as they do it under the guise of partisanship rather than explicit racial bias. And it serves as just one more example of how a majority of the current court seems intent on abandoning its vital role in ensuring equal participation in our democracy and protecting the rights of minority groups against minority overreach. The good news is that such setbacks can be overcome, but that will only happen if citizens across the country who cherish our democratic ideals continue to mobilize and vote in record numbers, not just in the upcoming midterms or in high-profile races, but in every election and every level.
So let's take a moment to just dilute this letter and have a complete understanding of why the VRA, the Voting Rights Act, was initiated in the first place. Because the core premises of the Voting Rights Act in 1965 was to enforce the 15th Amendment to eliminate states and eliminate states and local barriers that prevented Black Americans from voting. So the premises was to stop things like Jim Crow laws, was to stop things like poll taxes, literary taxes, grandfather clauses, and particularly intimidation to stop Black people from voting. It was to give Black people the opportunity, Black Americans, the opportunity to vote in elected officials who look like them and that would have their interests, right? So it has been diluted within itself because we are not included with all minority groups. The VRA was particularly meant for Black Americans to have a chance to be a part of the American system, the written system, when elected, not only voting, but the opportunity to elect elected officials. What have we been seeing in places like Texas, New York, Illinois, and Chicago? The Black voter, right, with all this gerrymandering, right, and all these open border policies have been looking more like the swing voter as the Democratic Party have been pushing the Black voter out of their urban communities in order to emphasize more towards the Hispanic community, the Asian community, all these other communities, while steady pushing, particularly the Hispanic community though, right? While pushing the Black American out. And they know that they've been doing this. So the meaning and how it's supposed to be defined, as he's talking about voting power of the voting power of racial minorities. Listen, he should be saying, as an elected official who is supposed to be representing us, right? Supposedly, it's, instead of saying the voting power of racial minorities, it should be saying the voting power of Black Americans. He's not saying that. The Democratic Party has been diluting the whole idea of the Voting Rights Act in the first place, because it was intended for Black Americans, not necessarily for all minority groups.
Well, if you want to go to the story, Rob, so I can read it and I'll turn it over to you. So New York Times, so Supreme Court weakens a landmark civil rights era law and aids GOP efforts to control the House. If you want to go a little bit lower, Supreme Court on Wednesday hollowed a landmark civil rights era law that increased minority representation in Congress and elsewhere, striking down the majority Black congressional district in Louisiana and opening the door for more redistricting across the country that could aid Republicans' effort to control the House. Ruling 6-3, the court's conservative majority found that Louisiana's district, represented by Democrat Cleo Fields, relied too heavily on race, and Chief Justice John Roberts described the 6th congressional district as a snake that stretches more than 200 miles to link parts of Shreveport, Alexandria, Lafayette, and Baton Rouge. The map is an unconstitutional gerrymander, said Samuel Alito, wrote for 6 Conservatives. And if you show the map, Rob, I think there's a breakdown by New York Times. If you want to go to the New York Times article, that if Connor hasn't sent it to you yet, New York Times, what should you put in it? I think the main, while I'm talking to the governor, he sent it to me. It's a New York Times story. I don't know if you have it or not. So is that the one? Okay. While you're doing this, what are your thoughts about this, the story and what Barack Obama just said?
So I think what President Obama said is absolutely correct, where it feels very odd that you can say that we are okay with partisan gerrymandering, but no other forms, especially when you consider the fact that over 92% of this country has congressional maps that are not competitive. This country is so gerrymandered. And it's actually embarrassing in the way that it's been gerrymandered. I have long believed that we need national redistricting reform, because this is not okay where we continue to have politicians that are picking their voters instead of voters picking their politicians.
Exactly the point of the VRA, right? Why have, even though there have been some elected officials that have been so in the interest of representing the Black American vote, however, it's being diluted when all these other cultures are coming into the Black community while pushing the Black community out of those districts, right? And here we are as Black Americans, we are less likely, from the theory of the VRA, right, as Black Americans are being weakened by this re-urbanization of the Black communities while these same districts stay in place, targeting towards an idea of minorities instead of Black minorities. So on the race, it's on the race, on the theory of race in the first place, right? If we're going to get pushed out and it's intended for Black Americans, it was intended for Black Americans because we are the primary individuals who were going through that. Like Black Americans are the primary, we're supposed to be the primary beneficiaries of the Voting Rights Act. But if we're going to get pushed out and we're going to seem more like swing voters, then what need do we have for the Voting Rights Act in terms of it being redistricting and gerrymandering on the basis of race? What is the need for it? If you have people like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Obama pushing for the idea of increasing their voter base with other minority groups instead of the Black Americans, like we are less likely. The Black American experience is different from everybody else's experience in this country, to where these people don't understand what the Black American has been through in this country in the first place to reach the point of getting something like the Voting Rights Act for the Black American interests to have the interests in which they have be a part of the political system in this country. And they're diluting the Black experience at the same time. And the Democratic Party is the primary one, is the people are the politicians who are diluting the Black people's experience when they are replacing the Black vote, the Black Americans vote, with the Hispanic vote. When they're not caring, they want to push more for immigration to come into this country. Look, the Black American cannot compete with the millions of people in terms of the ability to elect and elected officials. If you're going to allow millions of people to cross the border openly and try to get these people to violate the whole theory of the birthright citizenship, continuously become citizens, giving them the right to vote. So many things that have been happening in this country to decrease the voting power of Black Americans. When you go outside and you look at outside your door, when you go to these places, Texas, particularly Texas, Illinois, New York, Los Angeles, somewhere where these urban areas have been so flooded with so much immigration, and you think to yourself, how has the meaning and the whole reason for the Voting Rights Act in terms of how it's supposed to be affecting Black Americans is being diluted? You will see it right there. It has not been something that has been particularly for the Black Americans' experience into the political system.
We need to have national gerrymandering reform. I also know that what's happening right now and what we are continuing to see, and why this is such a heated issue for a lot of people, is you think about what's happening right now in just the past year, where these decisions that are being made by the Trump-Vance administration on going after these basic democratic frameworks, right? The idea that we should nationalize elections, even though we know that's unconstitutional. Like part of the beauty of the Constitution is there are state rights. We are in control of our elections. Mm-hmm. So we should not be nationalizing elections. The idea that somehow we should get rid of mail-in balloting, which actually we sued Maryland. I sued the Trump administration on this, and we're going to win in court on this because the president and the federal government does not have the authority to do that. That when the president's talking about things like, well, we should take control of the ballot boxes and we need your voter rolls, again, unconstitutional. The fact that the president is calling up Florida and Texas and Missouri and North Carolina and saying, you all should do mid-decade redistricting. By the way, everyone else, you can't. But you all should do it. This is blatant, what is happening right now. And what's happening right now is this is an assault on the basic democratic framework and the basic democratic values. And so I think what the president said is not just President Obama, what he said is not just factual, but I think he highlights the bigger concern that a lot of us have about some of these actions that are then taking place. When you look at that decision, the decision around Louisiana and the Supreme Court decision, this was happening because there was just a basic and an intentional and a racialized gerrymandering that was then taking place that was disenfranchising Black voters. So they're saying we have to come up with ways of being able to make sure that Black voters, after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, would actually be enfranchised and be able to be part of this this electoral system.
You see what I'm saying? Black voters, Black American voters. It did not primarily. It was not to be the subject or for the objective of all minority groups. Even though, see, this is why people just don't understand how much they have benefited from the Black experience in this country, as they come over here into this country and reap the benefits of that. Because you have got to read through the language to understand, particularly what he just had to mention. It took him all that to say who was a target of the Voting Rights Act. Without understanding that in the first place, right? If the Black American is becoming more of the swing voter in this country, the Voting Rights Act was particularly meant for them with the maps that are being drawn by the Democratic Party in order for them to gain these votes. And the Hispanic leadership has a stronger political leverage than the Black American. While the Hispanic turnout is rising, and how the Hispanic population has been probably one of the fastest growing populations in America right now. It's particularly with this open border policies. If you look at it like that, then you can actually see that the meaning of which it was supposed to be up under, how in terms of how it was enacted to be for the benefit of the Black American experience, is being diluted anyway, as the Democratic Party continuously, you see why they continuously be fighting for more illegal immigration. Listen, the Black American people in this country cannot compete with the millions of people that you are trying to allow to cross the border just so that you can remain in power and increase this is a form of cheating that Obama is talking about in the first place. This is another form of how the Democratic Party has been cheating their way into power and to remain in power in this country to push the policies that they necessarily want.
By doing this, by this action, this does represent one of the largest forms of political redlining that we have now seen in generations. And so I am very much for national redistricting reform. I think Congress, on so many different levels, Congress is just completely failing to do its job. This is the most unproductive Congress, not to mention the fact that this Congress has actually been out of work this year more than they've been in work.
Lowest approval rating Congress has had in the history.
Well, how can you get a high approval rating when you're not at work? Like, the government has been shut down longer than it's been open this year. This Congress is almost laughable, what is happening right now. And I think when you're looking at what's happening with our Congress, they need to be taking up this issue, and they are not. And so we continue now seeing how states are then doing this continual race to a bottom because there's just no type of guidance that we're getting from Congress.
Yeah, when you think about gerrymandering, it's three ways, right? Partisan, racial, and bipartisan. Very rarely is there bipartisan gerrymandering, but it happens every once in a while. And so this one's more on the racial side. Can you go back to the New York Times article you pulled up? So meaning if this passes, just to put it out there, this case hands the House to the Republicans. Democrats who hold 24 seats in Louisiana, you mean to tell me that 24 is going to go to 12?
Yeah.
Republicans gain 12 more seats just in this state, Rob?
And I'm actually happy for this, and this is why, because the Democratic Party has to lay more off race baiting to get people to vote for them, and they have to get back to policy making. I mean, they have to get to policy making, something that is going to benefit, have the interests of all Americans if they want to remain in power. Now they have to look at this like we have got to switch up our strategy instead of race baiting people, and particularly with the black community, instead of having them vote and not drawing them in to vote and not giving them what they actually need to, thrive and become all the people that they want to be in this country, right? We have to actually draw up policies. We got to be more like the Republican Party is trying to do right now in terms of drawing up the right policies that are going to be for the interests of the American people as a whole, standing up to the laws that all these people have fought for in this system all this time, instead of just saying, hey, black people, hey, Hispanic people, hey, Asian people, come vote for us, because the VRA was particularly meant for black Americans. Before the immigration in 1965, that's all you had was black Americans and white Americans in this country. So when thinking about that, these were the two targets that we were trying to combine together, allow more communication to flow between each other so that we can draw towards the interests of America in the system, the political system as a whole. But instead, what's been happening is black Americans are receiving less representation, because here we're at a time to where the Hispanic vote is becoming more stronger and popular than the black vote, and the black vote is becoming more of the swing vote, where we don't know how these individuals are going to vote. It's particularly when you're pushing them out of their communities.
Does this apply to any other state, or is it just a Louisiana case that they're talking about here?
I believe, according to this chart, it says these states. So I think it's Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana.
So all of those states combined, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, all of them, Democrats hold 24. After this, Republicans get 12 more seats.
And if you look at this map, right, if you look at the 24, even that's just a fraction of this map, right? But then you take a look to the right side. Look at that. Is that really what we think is fair representation? And this becomes the challenge. And by the way, it's actually not even just about these states. What it's also doing is you're now setting a legal precedent that you're going to now have other states who are then going to try to navigate this. It's the same reason why the Supreme Court earlier proved, because of their ruling, that partisan gerrymandering is allowed, that partisan gerrymandering is legal. So you saw how
Partisan gerrymandering is legal, because what it's going to stop is it's going to bring the if you are an American citizen, here you are with this whole idea of nationalism, right? To where you're going to stop the fighting for representation on the basis of race. And this is to give you an idea how the Democratic Party is race baiting. If they have us fighting with each other on the basis of race, then first of all, how they expect us as a minority to get along in the first place when we're increasingly trying to gain representation in the political system of this country? If they are the ones that are pinning us against each other for representation, this is why the court has actually stopped this. First and foremost, one thing that you have established, as for so long you depended on the black people's vote, is that we're not facing poll taxes, we're not facing literacy tests, we're not facing the grandfather clause, and our votes are not necessarily being suppressed. There are certain things that are happening, right, in terms of incarceration and but now people that are, once they get released from prison, have the right to vote again. But pinning us against each other so that we can get that representation for our interests into the political system is wrong. And this is what the course is getting at. But this is what the Democratic Party has been using. And increasingly, black Americans are being relocated about their communities. And while still keeping these gerrymandered districts that had been targeting towards getting black Americans to vote, but they're pushing the black Americans out.
other states were then moving and using and being completely blatant about the fact that it's like, yep, this is a partisan gerrymander. Wow. I want 3 more seats. I want 3 more Republican seats. I want 3 more Democratic seats. And do you know why they were unafraid to say that? Was because of precedent. So now this is adding on a whole new layer of precedent.
Yeah, because gerrymandering is what? Once every 10 years, right?
Correct.
It's
on
once
the
every
census.
10 years on the census.
On the census.
And typically,
Pretty much Democrats, you got to use something else. You got to get back to these policies that you need to get to in order to make this system work. Instead of fighting for just on the basis of your power, you got to actually kind of think about fighting for the American people again as a whole, right? That means you got to draw up policies that particularly are going to be the benefit for the long term instead of the short term. Because the script is already written. All you actually have to do is kind of, in a sense, be like Donald Trump, into which you keep your word to the American people, and the stuff that you promise the people that you actually bring about, and it's for the best and for the benefit of the future. It's not necessarily say, okay, well, we got this in our coffers in terms of money. We can give them this to get our vote, meaning to get them to vote for us. We could just give them this and they'll vote for us. We can just turn them into being dependent on us. And this is why they become such of a socialist party, because look, we got this. We can set funds away. We give them this and they'll vote for us. Instead of directing us to not be dependent on other countries, not offshoring our jobs, not as people saying here, who's going to cook? Who's going to first and foremost? Who's going to feed you? Who's going to build your houses? Who's going to clean? Who's going to clean your houses? Like, that was a Black American job. Not only was that was a Black American job, but that was a white American job as well. So who was doing that stuff before you got here? They've been pitting us against each other this entire time when this was supposed to be an apparatus for black Americans and white Americans to continue in communicating with each other about the direction in which the country can go, should go. But the black experience, right? The black American experience is being diluted because they care more about other people's vote than they care about the black American vote at the time. But now here you see them, they're crying about black people vote. Vote for us, please. When, listen, your history shows that we cannot count on you as a party in order to assert our political interests. And now it seems like you can't even have nothing to do with race when it comes to gerrymandering or redistricting your congressional districts or your states. So who has to reorganize if they want to stay in power, more than anybody? The Democratic Party. They have a lot to work to do within their party, because it seems like they have become more of a diplomatic party to where they want to fight for foreigners, foreign governments, foreigners in our country, more than and actually take away the stuff that American citizens has fought for, as they continue to shut the government down and continue to hurt the American citizen more than they hurt anybody else if you don't allow these foreigners to get what we want them to get, so that we can draw them into becoming our new voter base. They got a lot of reworkings to do within the Democratic Party if they want to stay in power right now. And I don't know how long it's going to take them to make that switch, but it's going to happen. Just like you got places like Texas, right, that they used as the census. Illegal immigrants were able to be counted into the census. Illegal immigrants were able to draw off federal funds as states were allowing them to participate in the social programs such as welfare and all this other stuff, Medicare and all this other stuff. Look what happens as Donald Trump saying that you're not going to receive any federal funding if you want to have a sanctuary city, a sanctuary state. Not only that, because of the big, beautiful bill, if you work with us on getting these people up out of here, you can get paid by the federal government for doing that. So when you look at places like Texas now, how has Texas turned the tide? AB, Assembly Bill 4, to where now they are saying, listen, we're going to use our local police department for anyone who we suspect to be an illegal immigrant. We're going to detain them and we're going to report them to find out what their status is. But if they are an illegal immigrant, we are going to report them to the federal government. We're going to get those federal dollars this way. So in the same sense, the Democratic Party has got to do some reorganizing now and be more about the people in this system than they're not.
Who gets criticized the most? Illinois, I believe, is one of them, right? Can you go to Illinois gerrymandering? Because they have like a monopoly on their house, on their representatives, if I'm not mistaken. The numbers in Illinois, it has to be, what is the number? I think it's honestly like 86% is on the Democratic side in the state of Illinois, 14-3. So 14-3 is what it is with Illinois, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Is it? Yeah, 14-3. So Illinois congressional enrollment Democrats created a 14-3 to Republicans when they did this in 2021. And so often cited as one of the most aggressive gerrymanderers in the U.S., it packs Republican voters into a few districts, reducing GOP seats from 5 to only 3. Okay, California tried to do it as well. And they're at 43-9. Can you type in same thing, California? I think it's 43-9. If they were able to pass it in California, it would be 48-4, which means California is going to be controlled on the left for God knows how long. I want to say they're right now at 43-9 with 43-9. And if they pass it. So, people will say this happens on both sides. It happens on both sides. And if they could do it, they would do it. And by the way, there's groups of people on both sides that are like, I hate gerrymandering. Let's put a stop to it. None of this should be happening. Let go of it. Left, right, center. Just let the people vote the way they're voting. We don't need to be doing this part. And there's a lot of people on the Republican and Democratic side. And then there's the people that are like, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it. If Pritzker did it, I'm going to do it. If you're going to, and then, there's no stopping there.
And that's exactly the war that has been going on right now, where we're getting pinned against each other more than we are looking towards working with each other to actually make this system operate within this harmony of government that we supposed to have between the American citizen and the people that we choose to represent us, not the people that who only want to be a part of representation so that they control us. No, it's a harmony to where we put you into government, right? Because we feel that you will be a leader for our interests as a country. So you necessarily have to look back down to us, right? Not down upon us, but look back down to us to ask us, what do you want from me as a representative, as a leader, a person that you have chosen to lead, in whether it's a state, the country, a congressional district, whatever. It's for you to look back down at us and say, okay, I am here to be of service to you. This is not, as in this political climate, this has not been going on. You know what I'm saying? Really, this is to force these politicians to look back upon the American people to get an answer for, how do you want me to serve? How do you want me to lead? Instead of people saying that we're going to use the race or a race on the basis of to control, to draw up our policies. And because as long as we give these people what they need in terms of a token, then we're going to push to change the country in a whole nother dynamic, because we are buying their loyalty. This is not a system, a party. The American system is a system of where we have loyalty to the people of America, not a loyalty to the party. And Democratic Party has really got some changes to do. Listen, I'm gonna get off this. I feel like it's a good thing for the country as a whole, because the Democratic Party primarily is just, they got some work to do. No matter how much influence a person like Obama think he may have, in terms of, just think about, how much did he, being a black supposedly being a black American, how much did he actually influence? How much political, how much of the black American interest did he actually, have in this country? Besides, being the first, quote unquote, the first black American president, what did he actually do for the black community? The only thing that I seen that he actually did was he allowed prisoners with the ability to receive degrees in prison. Other than that, and if you tell me, because in terms of black America, that's on the primary thing that I seen President Obama do. Donald Trump has did a lot more. Tiny Cross-H.U.G on the Trumped Up Live Show. Always remember, man, like, share, subscribe to the channel. And I believe that this is a great thing. Hit that hype button, by the way. Subscribe. It's a good day to be a soldier.
They said transformation was impossible. Faith, facts, and fire. Tiny Cross-H.U.G style.